I told you I'd be talking some Trans-Siberian Orchestra, so here we go. It's going to be brief, though, because this is just an EP that they have just released about a week or so ago called Dreams of Fireflies on This Winter's Night. This 5-track EP is not going to look like much to a lot of people with its under 20-minute runtime and only 5 tracks. But there is some things that we can talk about regarding Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Now, some of you might be coming in and not be fans of the Cover Killer Nation as of yet, but did you know that Trans-Siberian Orchestra has musicians in it that used to be in heavy metal bands? Yeah, bands such as Sabotage and Megadeth. Bands that you probably would never think that you would listen to and like. And yet these musicians have unified for Trans-Siberian Orchestra and have literally wowed fans for, pretty close to a decade. Not to mention every single concert of theirs that comes anywhere near this area sells out so damn fast that I can never go, which really sucks. Let's talk about this 5-track EP real quick. There's some work on here that is a little bit more traditional, based around some of the more moderate composers. You're going to see this illuminated a lot on track number 2. You're going to recognize the melody right away. And really, whenever you listen to this, at first you're going to think, well, maybe I just got myself an instrumental EP. Maybe there's no actual lyrics on here to, reckon with at all. And then you kind of move on to the last 3 tracks and realize that you're extremely wrong. And that's actually where this EP opens itself up a little bit. You see on this album a lot of heartfelt storytelling, and that's something that Trans-Siberian Orchestra has always been known for, considering their albums are usually universally concept-based. Some are based around Christmas, or their last album, for example, Night Castle, is based around a story that was written by one of its principal members. And so with that, you are not really all that surprised that they're able to do such storytelling within a song. That's the thing about this EP that's going to make it slightly different than the albums that you've heard in the past. Instead of this being a story from front to back, you're instead getting stories within songs. Someday is definitely a heartbreaking tale. It's not really so much heartbreaking in the fact that there is a tragedy that's involved here. It's heartbreaking in the fact that it reminds you really of just how life goes. It reminds you of how whenever you're young and things like that, things happen and families usually have to deal with a multitude of problems. But also that your mother and your father, regardless of how they met, they're always going to be there. And that, you're there one day, it feels like, and then the next day it feels like you're gone, because that's how quickly the childhood seems to erase itself into adulthood. And once you reach adulthood, how much you really crave for that infancy, that childhood back, because the times definitely seemed a lot better. It has a good message at the end, though, of really telling them how much of appreciation that there is and things like that. It's a very, very good song. Definitely one that will imbibe a lot of emotions. The last track, You Should Be Sleeping, is also one that's going to do that. It's another mainly traditional style song that is sung beautifully with some female vocals, and it's just this band, whenever they sing, really constitutes a lot of emotion out of people, and that's the reason why the concerts are so fiercely bought up, and that's the reason why the albums always are bought up, because this is music that is able to convey a strong emotion, whether it be toward Christmas or toward the entire body of the album as a whole, whatever the story may be. And with this EP, you might not have as many of those moments where you feel yourself either choking up or feel yourself with a little sense of pride or whatever it may be, or a little sense of Christmasness or Kringleness. You might not feel like Santa Claus is coming down the chimney as you're listening to a swirling solo by Apatrelli. But instead, what you feel is a sense of normalcy. You feel that sense of reflection. You feel that sense of humanity. This is an album that definitely takes apart the little things, the little aspects about life that sometimes pass us by without a thought, and they bring it home. Now, I'm not going to give this EP a rating because it's really far too short, and really with Trans-Siberian Orchestra it's very difficult to do any sort of judgment with them. However, this is one that is very inexpensive, and it's a quick little dabble into TSO. If you're not somebody who has listened to TSO before, I recommend picking this up to see if it's for you. I do believe that there are albums that are much better, but that's because, well, I'm into that kind of thing. You might not be. You might listen to this EP and think to yourself, I could never listen to a whole album of that. However, if you're also just a fan of TSO, I wouldn't sleep on this because even though it is only 5 tracks, even though it's only about 17 minutes or so, it's a short experience, but it's still a very qualifiable experience. You should definitely examine it.